I reckon these guys, the White Polkas and their sister ship, the Shimmer Polkas, which we'll be doing tomorrow, we'll just leave those guys, focus on the White Polkas today. But I think both of these guys are going to divide the community. I don't think there'll be many people that are sitting in the middle. I think it's both ends of the spectrum. People who are going to love them and people who are going to hate them. There's going to be people out there who say, whoa, look at these guys, they're absolutely fire. And Air Max 90 is never a bad thing. Sticking some polka dots on it, how cool is that? And then there's going to be people on the other end of the spectrum who are just like, absolutely not. This is not something you need to be doing to one of the classic silhouettes of all time. But both sides aside, I don't get into that. What I get into is just showing you the different materials, the different placement, and the different construction of the shoes, so you can make a decision out there as to whether you want to buy these things or not. And that's why I'm sticking up videos about 10 days before the drop date, so you know what's coming down the line and can make an informed choice. And what's coming down the line on June the 16th is these guys. So let's take a close-up look at the upcoming release of the Nike Air Max 90 White Polka. This is the Tokyo Butter 23 Sneaker Channel. Tokyo Butter 23 Sneaker Channelです。毎日アップするので、毎日見てください。And every single day from Tokyo, Japan, I bring you content about upcoming sneaker releases, sneaker news, and sneaker reviews. And we're celebrating passing 900 consecutive days on YouTube without a single day missed. No holidays, no weekends, no breaks, no summer holidays, no New Year's, nothing like that. Just 900 consecutive days, heading towards 1,000 consecutive days. And I can't wait to get to that. Hopefully, I'll be able to keep churning out the content. Nothing has come along in the last 3 years or so to trip me up so much that I couldn't get the content to you guys every single day. And fingers crossed, 3 more months or so and we'll get to that 1,000 day mark. So a big challenge at the channel coming close to the end, fingers crossed. But enough about that, into the actual shoe today. Let's have a look at what we're dealing with. And it's an Air Max 90, and it's kind of a 2-pack where we've got today's shoe, which is the White Polka, and then we've got tomorrow's shoe, which is the Shimmer Polka. And it totally reminds me of something, oh, there's something in my memory. That's right, I did exactly the same thing the last 2 days as well, and just by chance Air Max 90s are churning them out. And the last 2 days it was what were the shoes I did yesterday and the day before? They were the corks. That's right, it was the obsidian cork, and then the other one, which I've already forgotten what it was the wheat cork. No, it was a coconut corks. And the same thing I did with those guys was I split them into 2 parts and did the obsidian one day and the coconuts another day, because there were enough differences on the shoes to warrant 2 individual videos. And it's exactly the same today. We're taking the White Polkas today, and then tomorrow will be the Shimmer Polkas. And again, there's enough difference between the 2 shoes to do it that way. But it's kind of interesting. I did not plan it this way. I had those 2 Air Max videos already sort of in the bag, and then I was checking my sneakers app here in Tokyo, Japan, and it said June 16th, the polkas coming down the line. Totally surprised me. Thought, do I really want to do 4 consecutive days of Air Max 90s? Well, you know what? That's the way the cookie crumbles, as we say in the UK. So we're going to be going ahead and doing these ones today, and then the Shimmers tomorrow, and that makes 4 consecutive days of Air Max 90s. And what I slid in there, and I don't know if you caught it because maybe it's not interesting to you, or maybe it's the same to you, but if it isn't, the little piece of information in there was it's on the sneakers app for June the 16th here in Tokyo, Japan. Now, I cannot see out into the world. I don't know what's going on in the States, for example, or Europe, or Africa, or whatever. You know, I don't know the drop date for other parts of the world, but I do know it's on the sneakers app for June the 16th. Now, that used to be something. That used to be like, yes, absolutely confirmed. That ain't changing. But since the pandemic started, even drop dates on the sneakers app are not actually as reliable as they used to be. So for now, looks like they're coming to Tokyo on June the 16th. Let us know in the comments down below if that's the same for the rest of the world. I've got a finger. They've got plenty of fingers. I've got a feeling those corks, the obsidian corks and the coconut corks, actually have dropped in other parts of the world, and they're yet to come to Japan. It's just a feeling that the drops are kind of out of sync. But these guys, because it's on the sneakers app, I'm a bit more confident about it being June the 16th. Speaking about being confident, you have to be pretty confident to wear these guys. So let's get into them and talk about why that is. And we're going to start right down there in the toe box and have a look at what's going on in terms of the size of the polka dots and the color of the polka dots. Now, I've read in places it says almost the entire upper is covered in polka dots. I totally disagree. I think about 50% of the upper has the polka dots on them and the other 50% don't. So what we're zoomed in on here is the toe itself, and then you can see that mesh construction on the toe and then printed on that. I'm going to go ahead and say about 1 centimeter across would be my guess of the diameter of these polka dots. But the big thing about them, size is one thing, but the big thing is the colours and how there are varying degrees of grey coloured polka dots, and you can see that very clearly on the toe here. Some of them are so light they almost don't show up at all, and others are so dark they're not. They're very easy to see and hard to miss on there. So a big deal about these shoes is definitely taking a look at the size of those polka dots and the colouring of those polka dots as well. And now there's a bunch of materials going on too, so it's not too far to have a look away from that in the toe area where you can see some of these materials. Now we're talking about mesh, we're talking about leather, and we're talking about suede. So it's quite a lot of interesting different constructions that are going on. So hopefully I'm finding a way to show you on the green screen behind me here all those 3 different upper materials playing it together off of each other, and some of them, like we said, have those polka dots on them and others don't. Speaking of places that don't have polka dots on them, let's go up onto the laces and have a look there. Now this was something that was interesting yesterday and the day before with the corks, because they flipped this point out and it was different on the 2 shoes, the cork obsidians and the cork coconuts. So today what we've got here in these polka dots, you can see there's a bit of translucence going on in those eyelet areas where the 2 classically shaped standard panels of Air Max eyelets are on the lacing system up there, and that kind of grey to complement the rest of these shoes. Now they're basically a grey, and white shoe. You know what I'm saying? There's an awful lot of grey on these guys, but many different variants of that. And to represent all those different variants of grey and of course those polka dots up there, they've done something really interesting with the branding on the tongue. So let's go up and have a look at the branding on the tongue, and you can see up there the Nike Swoosh Air still in place as you'd expect on the Air Max 90. But then underneath that you've got a Venn diagram. And I think a lot of people will be looking at this and seeing 2 circles in that sort of Venn diagram overlapping to represent the polka dots. But actually I think I'm right in saying if you look closely enough you can see there's a 3rd circle below those 2, and because the way the colour sort of matches in with the colour of the tongue, it's hard to see that 3rd circle in the Venn diagram. So hopefully I'm doing it justice behind me here, and you can see what's going on those the tongue branding. And then it's not too far to go back from that and have a little peek onto the insoles and see the branding in there, and then the lining of these guys too. And then if we've gone from tongues back onto the insoles and the lining, it's not too far again to go around to the heel on these guys and have a look at what's going on back there. Now the major sort of story I suppose of the heel is the materials they've used to make that branding panel on there, which matches the kind of materials they had up on the eyelets up above, and also on the window below the swoosh, the little sort of branding window that you get on the side of Air Max 90s. But I think more of a story than that is the fact that they haven't gone with contrast branding. What I would have done is a white Nike swoosh branding on the back and then the black or dark grey branding panel, but they haven't gone for that. What they've gone for is the 2 colours matching, the branding and the branding panel matching, so you can't really see the branding as easily. So a little interesting detail, but you know, depends on the viewer out there which they go for, whether they like their branding to be contrasting or complementing. In the case of these shoes, it's definitely complementing. And then something else that complements that is the thing I call arrowhead every time I do Air Max 90s, and that's the area that wraps around the air unit, and you can see that in the darker grey. We talked about this yesterday with the coconuts because they had an all white midsole, including that arrowhead head, whereas the obsidians had an all white midsole, and then the arrowhead was a light grey. And you can see in the case of these guys it's a much darker grey, and you get that contrast between the midsole and the air unit and the arrowhead. And then we flip them upside down and have a look at the outsole, and it's a very gummy outsole on these guys. Very well worth focusing in on and seeing what we're talking about here, because it's a very different outsole in tomorrow's shoe, and that's one of the reasons why, like I said, I decided to split it up between the 2 shoes and do 2 different videos, was because they have so many different features, and the outsoles are one of the major differences between the 2 shoes. So what you're looking at here, I think if I'm right in saying, is a very gum sole outsole. I think, and again, you can look on the green screen if I've got this wrong, but I'm pretty sure there's a semi-translucence about it, and also wrapping around from the midsole coming onto the outsole. You've got those two coloured bars that come in from the left and right side to give definition and offset that gum sole feel to these guys. And that's a good way to finish it up and go back upstairs and have a look at the whole shoe. Hopefully you appreciated that take and you've understood a bit better the materials that there are in these Air Max 90s, and also the positioning of the polka dots and some of those unique elements like the branding up on the tongues, and also the choice of branding on the back of these guys. So hopefully there's enough in there. One little detail, personal observation, not a huge fan of a gum sole on this colour of shoe. I don't think it matches very nicely. It would have been a better thing to have on tomorrow's shoe, but they've gone with something else on tomorrow's shoe, so that's something to look out for. But for now, it's time to wrap this one up, and thank you guys for checking out the content. And the only thing that's left for me to do is the same thing that I do at the end of every single video, and I have done for something like 905 or 10 consecutive days, is to remind you that I do this every single day, and that means that you are guaranteed to see me tomorrow.